going to take you into an area that you might know remarkably little, and that is the area of Kutch. Even though our Prime Minister comes from that area, Gujarat, um, Kutch is relatively unknown. Relatively unknown. It's a tourist site now. There is a very, very interesting area, but nothing of Kutch painting has ever entered the mainstream of Indian painting. And there's a story attached to it. And I probably have told you a part of the story earlier and so on, how I discovered Kutch painting. But it's worth retelling. I didn't done a book on that, so you run the risk of my going into too much detail. And whatever. I opened the book by saying Kutch is interesting for two reasons. The name itself has says something. In the Mahabharata, there is a reference to an island on the western coast of India, it looks like cardamom, elaichi. And if you look at the map of India, Gujarat is extending into the ocean. It very much like an elaichi, like a cardamom, right? And I've drawn some inference from that, or stretched it. I say it's like elaichi, like a cardamom. It is rough on the outside, but when you open it, it is remarkably fragrant, right? Secondly, Kutch is also related to the term Kachapa. Kachap means a tortoise, right? So it is partly on land, partly on sea. So both terms are quite interesting. But that's only a journalistic way of entering the field and so on. I want to take you into the painting itself. I'll tell you the story. I was teaching many years ago at Heidelberg. Heidelberg is, as we all know, great city, great university, and so on. So I teach in there. I had a colleague by the name of Damandala Piccola, Italian, fiery Italian, very alert, and so on and so forth. Mind of a librarian, wonderful, organized person. She knew everybody in Heidelberg. And 9 years I went to Heidelberg, and 1 year that I was there, she said, I have heard that such a dealer, who's a bric-a-brac dealer, European stuff of no great quality. She said, I believe he has got some Indian paintings. So I said, interesting, let's go and see them. So I went there with her into the heart of the town. And this man, who knew nothing about India, never traveled to India, and never taken any interest in India at all. So he had a pile of pictures like this, right? One on top of the other. No text, no binding, nothing, just a pile of pictures. So I started leafing through the page. They're very interesting, but I never seen quite anything like that before. This must have been 74 or 75, well before some of you were born, right? So there we are. And a series of portraits and darbar scenes and processions, men on elephant back, portraits of 4 people within the same frame, individual portraits, darbars and people seated in serried order and so on and so forth. So, and many of them had small inscriptions in a script which I could not easily read. I could see that it was a version of Gujarati, but I could not read it, and I had no idea where these paintings are from. Like all good dealers, he never revealed his sources, where they've come from. They must have arrived, smuggled out of India in a pile. So started wondering, they had some Rajasthani element in it, and fairly clearly Rajasthani element, but did not fit 4 square into a Rajasthani area. Neither Jodhpur nor Mewar nor Udaipur and nor Jaipur and so on. So it started what delay. Some names of the rulers I could read. Rao Desai, Rao Raidhanji, Rao Gorji, Rao Lakhpatji. Four names I was able to. I had no idea who these people were, where they were from. So I came back to the library at University's library, started looking through one gazette after another. And I finally located these names, and it turned out they all were rulers of Kutch. So I was on to Satya. But interesting paintings. I took the permission of the dealer, photographed them, and I wrote to Stella Kramrish, who was the grand dame of Indian art, and she was editing Artibus Azier, which is the foremost journal of Indian art. And I wrote to Stella and I said, I've discovered something which is very interesting, something new. So I'll send it to you if you are interested in an article, provided you are able to print it within the next 6 months. Immediately, I get a reply from Stella saying, I would be very interested, so send me that art. Because otherwise, they would be and go in the backlog 3 years, 4 years, and so on and so forth. I was so excited by the discovery. So I sent it off. Stella, true to her word, printed it in the very next issue. And it created a bit of a stir among artistry circles, because nobody had seen these paintings before. Nothing had been published till then. So I found out from the dealer everything within weeks of that article appearing disappeared. People, collectors came up, bought things and nothing, no value attached to them. 200 Deutsche Marks or 300 Deutsche Marks is all. So the entire collection did scatter. Next year I went there again. I used to teach a semester at the university. I'm sorry, so autobiographical. That's not my intention. I just want to share with you the excitement of my discovery of Kutch. Next year I went, and this time routinely I asked my colleague Dara Bikola, I said, let's go and see this man again. So we went to see the same dealer. Izaku, no, I'm sorry, not Izaku. I forgot his name, it didn't come to me. So this time I went there and said, do you have anything Indian? Yes. Another pile, right? And I was stopped, because I had heard that he had sold off everything. Another pile of pictures, and this time I turned them up one after the other, all landscapes. Landscapes. We do not associate landscape painting with India at all, right? We see landscape, we have lectured on landscape here. I'm sure you recall that, or you have happily forgotten whatever I said of that occasion. Landscapes, very, very interesting stuff. There's a European print of the city, of a square in the city of Vienna. There's printed at the bottom, engraving. And 4 paintings done by hand, versions of that in the same group, same pile. Astonishing. 1 original and 4 copies of that. Extremely second, I picked up another sheaf, and it was the Pall Mall in London, or the something like that, the Royal Chelsea Hospital in London. Again, an engraving of this particular size, and 4 copies of that in Indian hands. But it was very clear. I found it so intriguing. What was happening in this little corner of India? And then I started researching a bit more, and this is what I found. In the year 1724, a sailor traveling from the west coast to Africa, because west coast to Africa is a trade all the time, right, became a shipwreck. His name was Ram Singh Malla. Malla means a sailor in Gujarat. And shipwreck, he reached somehow Holland, stayed there 11 years, and picked up all kinds of tricks of doing things and so on, making glass, blowing this and that and so on, and weapons of different kinds and so on. And it seems that he collected these engravings while he was in Europe, came back to India, went to Saurashtra from where he came, and must have gone from court to court to sell his talent, right? And nobody was truly interested except the ruler of Kutch. And the ruler of Kutch at that particular time was a man called Maharao Lakhpat, Lakhaji or Lakhpat. And Lakhaji seems to have been a person who was greatly interested in new things. So he engaged Ram Singh, so it seems. It's all speculation, right? And anybody can challenge this on the basis of documentary evidence, however, not on the basis of different speculation, right? So nobody has, till now, nobody has done that. So 11 years he was in Europe. He came back and went to and engaged by Lakhaji, and who must have said to him, do whatever you like. So he must have shown him these paintings, these engravings which he had drawn. He was not a painter himself. So these engravings, Lakhaji was very interested in that. A curious mind. So he must have started. This is a very different way of seeing things. All these perspectives and so on, the depth in the picture and so on, like this and so on, and the cross hatchings, which engravings naturally bring in, and so technically and so on. So he must have had painters. He did have painters already working for him, whatever they were doing. Painter community in that area is called Kamagar or Kamangar. And these people, he must have said, copy this, right? So 4 painters are working on the same engraving, producing their version of this an European bull. And you could see that all of them were different, slightly different, one from the other. One of them could understand how these lines go, another one could not fully understand. So, and then they would not sign their pictures at the back of each painting. They would make their sign manual as it is called, just like a signature, but a flower, right? A narcissus, a lotus, a rose, a carnation, or something like that. And you could, after some time, see that carnation understood it better than rose did, right? We had no names, right? Like that. Then, this is interesting enough in itself. European paintings were not unknown. We know the Jagiri period and Akbar period and so on. European paintings came to India and so on and so forth. But this was very, very different. And then there was another, in the same pile, another group of pictures, which were genuine, observed landscapes of Kutch. These painters, after making these copies and after having learned some tricks of perspective and this and so forth, must have talked to each other. Pagal, what are we doing? Making copy of this place we don't know. Why don't we paint things that we see around ourselves? And then they painted Kutch. Some remarkable paintings. Having learned from European tricks or whatever, right, they started painting their old surroundings with the long inscriptions at the back in Gujarati. In fact, in Kutchi, I taught myself to read Kutchi.